Hello, this is the luckiest maths teacher in the world. Thank you so much for tuning into this video in which we review the mean, median, and mode. So when we talk about these three things, we're talking about the mean, median, or mode of a set of data or a set of scores. So we have these scores up here, 6 scores. So they could represent anything. Could be test scores, for example. So the mean, median, and mode are measures of central tendency. So this means that they aim to tell you about the center of the data. What's an average or a typical score? So if these were all like test scores as percentages, the mean, median, and mode aim to tell you what was the typical score of a student in this class. So to calculate the mean, we add up all the scores and divide by how many there are. So to calculate the mean, we'd go 88 plus 74 plus 90 plus 74 plus 92 plus 90. Now, if we add up all of these scores, we get 508. There are 6 scores in total. So the mean would be 508, the sum of the scores, divided by 6, which is the number of scores. So if I put that on my calculator, I get 84.67 to 2 decimal places. So I wanted to give you an answer like this to let you know the mean does not need to be one of these scores. So median, that's the middle of the data. So the median is the point in the data where there are the same number of scores above that point than below. The median's a little complicated because you calculate it differently depending on whether they're an even or an odd number of scores. So here, there are clearly an even number of scores. So when there is an even number of scores, you'll actually have 2 middle numbers. So what we need to do for the median is we need to arrange all the data from smallest to largest. We can't calculate the median until it is in order. So let's write the data in order from smallest to largest. So the 2 smallest scores we had 74, then 88, 90, 90, and 92. So now the data is in order. So the middle of the data is this point here. Halfway between 88 and 90, there are 3 scores above that point and 3 scores below that point. So when you have an even number of scores, as I do here, there are 2 middle numbers. You take the 2 middle numbers, add them up, and divide by 2. You're finding the number halfway between the 2 middle numbers. So in this case, it's 89 is the middle. There are the same number of scores above 89 as there are below 89. So the mode is the most common score, and that's the easiest to figure out. So in this data, 74 occurs twice, but so does 90. There can actually be more than one mode. So in this data, 74 and 90 are both the most common scores. So when there is more than one mode, we say the data is bimodal. And if there is only one mode, we say the data is unimodal. In this case, this set of 6 scores is bimodal because there are 2 most common scores. So now what I want to do is, let's say this was the set of scores in a group of students. Let's now say another student took the test and that student also scored 74. So if I add in that score, the scores will now add up to 508 plus 74. If I add up these 7 scores, I now get 582. So the mean of these 7 scores is 582 divided by 7, and you get 83.14. That's to 2 decimal places. So it's approximately equal to 83.14. Once again, the mean does not need to be one of the data points. So let's now calculate the median. Well, when we did it before, there were 6 scores. There was an even number of scores. But now, there is going to be an odd number of scores because I'm adding in this score 74. So once again, to calculate the median, the scores need to be in order from smallest to largest. Now, when there's an odd number of scores, the median is actually one of the scores. It's this score here, 88. So the reason for that is when you have an odd number of scores, you can circle it like this, and you'll have the same number of scores above it as below it. So the median of these 7 scores is 88. So when there's an even number of scores, the median is the average of the 2 middle scores. And when there is an odd number of scores, as there is here, the median is one of the scores. You always need to arrange from smallest to largest to calculate the median. So now that I've added in this score of 74, there are 7 scores, but 74 occurs 3 times, 90 only occurs 2 times. So now that I've added this score of 74, 90 is not the mode. There is now only one mode. So this data set is unimodal. So please understand, the mode is the most common score. Some people think the mode is just any score that's repeated, which is not the case. All right, last thing we need to do, we'll go through how to find a score if you know the mean. So let's look at this question here. 7 students in a class completed a quiz and the scores were out of 10. The mean score was 6 out of 10. Another student took the quiz. The mean then increased to 6.5. We're going to use this to calculate the student's score. So we've got information about the mean and we're going to use that to find one of the values. So we know that the mean is equal to the sum of all the scores divided by n, which is the number of scores. So if 7 students took a quiz and the mean was 6, we know that the mean is equal to the sum of the scores divided by 7 because there were 7 students. 7 is the number of scores. So that means that the sum of the scores is just 6 times 7 or 42. So think about it. If there were 7 students and the mean was 6, all the scores must add up to 42 because 42 divided by how many there were, 42 divided by 7, gives me the mean score of 6. So if you know the mean and how many students there were, multiply them together, that gives the sum. So this was all before the extra student took the quiz. So after the student took the quiz, the mean was 6.5. So I have the mean is equal to the sum of the scores divided by how many there were. Now, after this extra student took the quiz, there would be 8 students who took the quiz. So that means that after the student took the quiz, the sum of the scores is 6.5 times 8, which is 52. So what I'm saying here is that the sum of all the scores before he took the quiz was 42, after he took the quiz was 52, so therefore, what was his score? The student scored 10. Alright, thank you so much for tuning into this video. This has been the luckiest maths teacher in the world. Have a great day.